The Australian general election is coming up, and here's a word from Juice Media.
Hello, I'm from the Australian government with a final message before the election. This could be our last ad, unless you re-elect us, which would be a miracle after all we've done these past 3 years.
But here at the Australian government, we believe in miracles. And
I have the same thoughts when the UK election comes up, and it's not for a while yet. It's like 3+ years. And you just think, surely Conservatives over here will need a miracle to stay in power. However, I thought that about Brexit, and I thought that about the Tories. It is funny how people vote, isn't it? And quickly forget all the wrongdoings.
the one we're praying for hardest this election is that most of you are too busy trying to make ends meet to remember all we've done these past 3 years.
Under the leadership of our prime marketer, ScoMo, or as his colleagues call him, liar, hypocrite, fraud, complete psycho and absolute arsehole.
Are Boris Johnson and ScoMo the same thing? Are Bojo and ScoMo really just the same identity? They possibly are. They possibly are just the same.
As well as a fine array of ministers, like Susan, Minister for No Duty of Care over young people.
And Richard, Minister for No Duty of Care over old people.
Minister for people who are not blessed.
Minister for saying Labor will drop the ball on national security. Minister for dropping the ball on national security.
There's no difference. There is no difference between the UK and Australia. Like for example, okay, I'll give you that. The national security nonsense, okay? All right. The reason why Brexit happened was basically because of the right wing or working class didn't want immigration. They didn't want immigration. They didn't want people coming to our country. Whether you like that or not, that is how it is. That is why Brexit won, okay? So this whole message during Brexit and during the last general election was, as Conservatives, we will make sure that immigration is reduced and it is a lot more strict, and we'll be doing the point system that Australia has and whatnot. Immigration has gone up. They've also been in power for, now the last 11 or 12 years. But they would say how Labour, the left wing, would, they'll allow everyone to come in. But you've had your chance, and it hasn't got any better. It just puzzles me. It puzzles me how similar. If you're on the right wing, your message is, we'll be tough on immigration. They never are. They never are. It's so funny.
Minister for not letting this family go home to Billow.
Minister for Santos. Minister for Woodside.
Minister for cosplay.
Minister for integrity. Minister for bagging his own state during the pandemic and losing his seat to an independent.
And of course, Jenny, Minister for reminding complete psycho to empathise with rape survivors.
We've delivered on the economy. Unemployment is down and corporate profits are up. What's that? You can't afford food, fuel and rent due to the rising cost of living. Oh.
All right, I've stopped that there. Sorry, I know it's stopping, but it's a reaction channel. This is a tough one, actually. The rising cost of food, gas, electric, and just general costs. How much can you blame one government? You can blame a government for how they then act after those price rises and not necessarily supporting. But I don't think you can blame the government for those rising costs. It was the same when Labour in the UK were last in charge, and there was nothing left. But that's because there was a global economic crisis. The problem now is there is another global crisis with inflation and price rises and food and oil, and even some shops have limited people to only 2 bottles of cooking oil. Incredible. But I think that the generalisation of rising prices, you cannot blame a government for that. You can blame them for what they do afterwards because it's happening all around the world. So if you I don't like the Tories, but I'm not blaming them for the price rises, as you can't do the same with Liberals who are in charge now in Australia.
Oh, sweetheart, that's because your wages haven't gone anywhere since, what a coincidence, since we've been in office. That's not a flaw, it's a deliberate design feature. So get back to work, Australia. Those profits aren't going to make themselves go up, you pieces of shit.
But
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because, you raise wages, but then the businesses have to pay those wages. And if you're a small business, I couldn't afford to pay my staff, a higher amount, because then I have to put the costs up for the customers. And it's a really tough one. And I'm actually fairly sympathetic for governments in general around the world that are having this problem, because you can't just raise wages a stupid amount. I don't think. Possibly what a government, as I said, it's all about what the government does when the crisis happens. There is a strong suggestion that a really good idea is actually giving citizens a certain amount of money every year. So, for example, in the UK, give everyone £10,000. That then covers for things like bills and but it's there to spend, and then that money goes back in, supports businesses and things. There's a strong feeling behind that, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But it's a tough one, to be fair.
Hey, don't forget those breadcrumbs and tax cuts we gave you. Well, rich people got a tax cut. Low-income earners will get approximately fuck all. And the rest of you will end up paying more tax once these cuts expire just after the election. Australian government, putting the N back in cuts.
Speaking of huge cuts and handouts for those who don't need them, Jerry got a shit ton of your money via JobKeeper.
Which is how we pissed billions up the wall and then told you it's Labor you can't trust with money.
Of course.
It's always the same. Over here, and I've got to compare with over here, the Tories are always known as the party that is good with money. Really? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And people could say, oh, there was nothing in the bank when Labour left last time. But it was a global financial crisis. I feel strongly about that.
Of course, when we heard Jerry's profits doubled, we let him keep your money.
But if you got some of our way below the poverty line benefits, we came after you until you paid us back or killed yourself.
Australia, where we cut your kids' disability funding without notice.
And we pay aged care workers fuck all to look after our elders. In an aged care system the Royal Commission called a national disgrace.
But we found billions for subs we won't get, jets that don't work, and tanks we don't need.
Where we cut funding for unis and schools.
Public schools, that is. Private ones got shit tons more.
Where if you can't afford rent because of the rental crisis, we tell you to just buy a house.
And if you can't afford a house because of the housing crisis, we let you raid your own super.
So when our housing bubble Ponzi scheme implodes, you'll lose your retirement.
So when you do retire, you'll probably end up being neglected and left to die in pain in one of our aged care homes.
So as you can see, wherever you are in life's journey, we've made sure you eat shit from childhood to old age.
But we've also achieved that in other lesser areas, like women. We bullied this one into resigning.
Jizzed on this one's desk.
Covered up an alleged rape in Parliament House.
Exonerated this guy with a sham investigation.
Exonerated this guy with no investigation.
And then failed to attend any of the nationwide protests we inspired.
But hey ladies, at least we didn't shoot you at those protests.
This time, First Nations. We had nothing to say about all the deaths in custody under our watch and said some cringe shit when we should have said nothing. Our history coach was on leave that day.
National security. We established ourselves as the greatest threat to national security by leaving you unprepared and exposed to deadly floods and fires.
Oh man, there's a lot gone on, isn't there? And I stress what I said before, that a lot of aspects in life are sort of out of control of governments. Things happen, whether that's the banks controlling things, and natural inflation or natural disasters. And you've got to look at how the governments have then acted after that, don't you, really? I don't even know what to say. I really don't know what to say. It is a mess everywhere. It's a mess everywhere.
Climate.
We made bullshit ads to sell you bullshit technologies that don't reduce emissions, so we can prop up the industry that's worsening those floods and fires.
COVID. We inflicted unnecessary pain on you by not listening to experts.
Not fixing quarantine.
Not getting enough vaccines fast enough.
Not shutting the fuck up.
There, and Australians taking wickets in the virus.
Leaving thousands of you stranded overseas.
Undermining state premiers at every step of the way.
And then taking all the credit. And lastly, corruption. We know you're...
Oh, I know about people taking the credit. Oh, Boris taking credit for the brilliant rollout of vaccines from the NHS, which he had no real control of.
Sad we broke our election promise for a federal ICAC, but you can blame Labor for that. It's their fault for not supporting our alternative, which is just like an ICAC, except it can't take public tip-offs, can't hold public hearings, or investigate corrupt conduct.
Which means it wouldn't be able to investigate how we rorted this fund, this fund, this fund, and that fund.
How we appointed our mates to the appeals tribunal.
Or how we paid 10 times the market value for land that just so happened to be owned by our donors. Cool and normal. And on that note, we bid you fuck you, Australia.
It has been an honour to not hold a hose,
Not hold investigation.
trash your reputation,
Shirk the blame.
shake your hands,
This bullshit.
and smirk as your homes burn, towns flood, and reefs die.
Of course, when faced with all this shit fuckery, some of you might be thinking of voting for Labor, or for one of the many not shit independents and candidates lining up nationwide to kick us out.
But why do that when you have a clear choice this election between us and a government you don't know?
And say what you will about us.
At least you know exactly what massive pieces of shit we are. Australian government. Authorised by the Department of Genuine Satire.
There you go. There is the election message. There is so much stuff that the current government hasn't got right. They may have tried to get right, but they haven't got right. And I stress this at the setup, as I said at the start. It is incredible how your government is basically the same as our government. Some dude got caught watching porn in the House of Commons the other week, and he's just resigned. It just does not stop. We have got all the controversy as well over here. The problem is we got a little bit longer to wait before the election. So yeah, it's painful. I look. Of course, I'm on the left wing. I'm centre left. That's what I am. I'm centre left, and I'm right wing is a bad thing. It's a bad thing for humanity. I do feel sorry for some things because, as I said in the video, there are things that governments can't necessarily prevent. Natural disasters, the rising costs of everything. But it's what they then do afterwards. We got the situation with gas and electric prices going skyrocket. Well, you know, I think BP and Shell, if you heard how much money they made last year, 9 billion plus, what are they doing with that money? Is it just going straight out to shareholders? Why is this huge profits not either coming back into the country as you know, to keep those prices down? Why are they not? Are they paying their fair share of taxes? That's all. I think that's all people ask. If you've got a big business, you should be paying your fair share of taxes. Not more tax, but your fair share, not dodging away. And that's a big issue, isn't it? With a lot of this is about the corruption, you know, of big businesses versus the little guy that works hard, you know, every week to make ends meet, and there are those guys in their towers. I say towers. Soaking all the money in. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you should be able to succeed. You should be able to be rich if you achieve something and you manage to create this wealth. That's brilliant. You know, I don't begrudge anyone for being rich and wealthy, but it's about paying your fair share. And then when you get, you know, the lobbyists, the oil lobbyists, and they're all around the world. It's the same in America with the gun lobbyists and the oil lobbyists and everything. And it's just corruption. I don't like when people say, oh, politicians are all the same, because I don't think that's fair on politicians. Politicians, pretty much all of them, should go into their role looking to make things better, but maybe along the way, quite a few of them see it slightly differently. It's very tricky. You know, hey, there's pros and cons of this. Hopefully what I've done is give you a fairly neutral view. I've admitted I'm left centre, but I can see not everything is the government's fault. It's not all the government's fault, but there are things they could certainly do differently and better. Anyway, another good one from Juice Media. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.